Does the physical world exist? A philosophical inquiry. In this episode, we delve into the intriguing question of whether objects continue to exist when we are not observing them. This concept, reminiscent of our discussion with René Diot in episode 1, challenges us to ponder if the physical world is genuinely real. Back in 1710, the Irish philosopher Bishop George Barkley boldly proposed that the world might not exist independently of our perception. Let's explore whether this audacious idea holds any merit for him. Barkley was countering the intuitive belief that a physical world exists independently of us, with objects in this world being detected through our senses. Interestingly, Barkley is often confused with George Barkley, but they are distinct individuals. Imagine observing a banana. You note its properties, yellow, solid, curvy, and so forth. These properties, which you perceive, are attributed to a substance, a physical entity distinct from us. However, Barkley argued that these properties don't exist independently of us. For instance, bananas aren't inherently yellow, they reflect certain wavelengths of light that our eyes interpret as yellow. If our eyes were different, we might perceive them as another color. Thus, the yellowness is merely a property that doesn't exist unless observed. But what about the substance itself, the banana devoid of any properties? It's challenging to conceive something existing independently of perception. As soon as you try, you attribute properties to it, which, according to Barkley, only exist when observed. For example, imagine a table. It's brown, but if no one is there to see it, it isn't brown. It doesn't have height either, as there's no observer to perceive it. When you say a table exists independently of you because it's in another room, you mean that if you were to enter that room, you would experience the table. However, if objects are merely their properties and these properties exist only in our minds, then there isn't an actual physical world distinct from us, only us and our ideas. Thus, things don't exist unless they are perceived. This was Berkeley's mantra: to be is to be perceived. The physical world isn't real, there is no spoon, as the saying goes. This notion is quite radical and hard to accept. For instance, when you leave your house for work, it seems impossible that the inside stops existing until you return. Barkley didn't mean it literally disappears when you turn your back. Instead, he argued that for something to exist, it must be observed. The idea of something existing without being perceived didn't make sense to him, because something unperceived lacks properties. Before you panic, there might be ways to navigate this philosophical conundrum. One approach is distinguishing between appearance and reality. We often say the world can appear one way, but be another in reality. Since Barkley believed there's no real world independent of our perceptions, he had to argue that hallucinations and dreams are as real as anything else. This perspective opens up fascinating discussions about the nature of reality and perception. Here's a fresh take on the original discussion, reimagined with new phrasing and clarity. The question asks whether our perceptions of the world somehow create reality itself, a classic philosophy problem. Suppose you dream of an elephant that feels as real as the one you'd see at a street festival. Does this mean reality is just a projection of our minds? The original text challenges this idea by pointing out that even if we misperceive our surroundings, the physical world still impacts us. Imagine not noticing a speeding car and jumping into traffic. You'd get hit regardless of whether you saw it, which implies the car exists independently. Barkley, a bishop, argued that God ensures consistency in our perceptions. Without this, strange contradictions would arise. For example, if you were hit by a car driver wouldn't perceive, God would ensure the car still kills you. But as the text highlights, this approach runs into problems. What happens if there's no God, or lightning strikes someone before they notice? Berkeley's solution falters under these edge cases. It also becomes questionable if altered states, like LSD, change perceptions. Would God still guarantee such effects? The text then compares the physical world to unproven mathematical concepts. Just as mathematicians use unproven principles for their explanatory power, Maybe we accept the physical world exists even if we can't definitively prove it. This virtual reality metaphor, discussed in the linked sources, suggests our waking experiences might just be a more controlled form of dreaming. Regarding future generations, 9 Factorial mentioned that as people are born, they transition from future to present individuals, leaving open questions about moral obligations. Jim Gr focused on environmental protection as an evolutionary duty to children. The text counters that without children, does this duty vanish? In a past video about virtual reality, Liam Sled argued for embracing happier simulated worlds since we can't confirm reality anyway. Michael R. valued integrity over happiness, while Max Gizman suggested such values themselves derive from happiness. Controversial ideas like these remind us how philosophy forces us to question even the most obvious truths. The text invites readers to engage by leaving comments, subscribing, and hitting the like button. Remember to share with friends and check the next video for responses. I've found that no matter how much I Google, I couldn't find the help I needed. However, when they asked for recommendations for other YouTube channels that delve into philosophy, I'd suggest the PBS Idea channel and Vsauce. While they do cover philosophy, they tend to touch on it lightly rather than delving deep into the subject. That's one of the reasons I started this channel, as I noticed a gap in their content. I'm also sorry that your textbooks seem a bit dull. I can relate to that feeling. When I was starting out, it was my teacher who made a significant difference, not the textbooks. If there's anyone else in your class who might find these videos beneficial, please share them. As for the question about a magical button that could instantly double my subscribers, I'd probably pass. It's not about the numbers for me. I care more about creating content that people enjoy than about my position on the top 10 subscriber channels list.